now equally famous for the role of Indiana Jones, would return as Han Solo.
The other actors after Star Wars had signed on to do 2 more, because I wanted to finish the whole thing. Harrison did not. He had the idea, oh, why don't you kill him off? Why don't you kill him off?
I thought Han Solo should die. I thought he ought to sacrifice himself for the other 2 characters.
I also felt someone had to go. You know, I felt someone had to die.
I said, he's got no mama, he's got no papa, he's got no future. He has no story responsibilities at this point. So let's allow him to commit self-sacrifice.
And I thought it should happen very early in the last act so that you would begin to worry about everybody. We should sacrifice somebody. And George was against it. And George knew what he wanted, and he got what he wanted.
Hey, it's me.
Once production began, Lucas was determined not to let the budget escalate as it had on Empire.
Good luck. You're gonna need it.
It wasn't easy, given that the rest of the world assumed money was no object.
Anytime you would go in and try and negotiate for production facilities, people would say, oh, well, that'll cost $2 when it might normally cost $1. So I had the suggestion that we change the name of the picture. It was called Blue Harvest, and the subline behind it was horror beyond imagination.
Camera.
The idea behind it was to come up with a title that would instill absolutely no interest whatsoever in what you were doing. It was like, well, what is Blue Harvest? It's like, well, who cares? It worked until Han and Luke and Leia showed up to come to work. And everybody went, oh, I guess this really isn't horror beyond imagination. I guess this is really the next Star Wars movie.
Revenge of the Jedi would again reunite the Star Wars cast and crew, who after 6 years and 2 record-breaking motion pictures had formed a lasting bond.
With the same crew for all 3 films, for the most part. So it was, you know, a family.
I'm walking along by myself, rehearsing, going something like, Lando Calrissian never returned from this awful place, and so on and so on.
Lando Calrissian and poor Chewbacca never returned from this awful place.
And suddenly I hear beep, 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 and I turn around, and George is now crouched behind me, waddling along, sort of on his haunches, going beep, 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 beep. It was a joyous moment.
Like its predecessor, Jedi continued to expand the cast of characters in the Star Wars saga.
What's that?
One of the biggest was intergalactic gangster
I know that laugh.
Jabba the Hutt.
George said, oh, I need something that's, you know, alien and grotesque. That's like Sidney Greenstreet. Oh, okay. When I had kind of gotten this idea down to this big slug-like thing that is just this big pulsating mass of flesh. At one point, I had a fez on one of the characters, like Sidney Greenstreet. And then Stuart Freeborn in England's job was to, you know, fabricate the thing, and that was operated with 1 puppeteer for each arm, 2 puppeteers for the arms, another guy doing the head, another guy, radio control guy, doing the eyes. There was like a couple little people in it, you know, pulling things to make the tail move around. It was quite a thing.
I had my little dwarf sitting inside. I had a little seat made for him in the tail here, and he operated it all. And he was sitting there for quite a few days doing this, and if he operated the first one, it made, whichever way he pulled it, it would either lift it upwards or sideways, you see, so that he could make that move in any direction.
And action. At last, Master Luke's come to rescue me. I must be allowed to speak.
Jedi mode speak go eat.
You will bring Captain Solo and the Wookiee to me. Master Luke, you're standing on...
Jabba has to pull the rug out from under Luke, and he falls into the pit, and there's this big Rancor pit monster. George was really adamant that we were going to do it as a man in a suit. It was going to be like a really cool Godzilla. Tony McVeigh, one of the sculptors, fabricated this big Rancor suit, and based on my design. And I designed this thing that I call it kind of a cross between a bear and a potato. It was just this big, dumb thing. But it never looked that great, no matter what we did. So at some point, George said, no, let's do it, some other way. And so, Dennis thought, well, let's try and do it as a, high-speed, puppet. We designed the skeleton for Rancor. Tom Santamon and Dave Sasala and I, puppeteered the thing. It was a crazy, way of working, because this thing, if it has to, walk into a room and turn around and roar, and it's like a 4-second shot, and you're shooting at 90 frames a second, you've got a second to shoot it.
ILM's creatures might have been puppets, but they could still elicit an emotional reaction from their human co-stars. One even triggered a panic attack.
I got claustrophobia once, and I didn't even have the whole suit on. I was lying on the floor, the camera is about that far away from me. Salacious Crumb, the wonderful Salacious Crumb, animated by Tim Rose. And he's pulling out my eye.
34A, take 2, A&B camera. Action!
And something went in my mind, I didn't catch a breath or something, and I suddenly could feel panic just absorbing into my body.
Look, my eyes, Natu, help!
And I was saying, get me out, get me out, get me out, get me out, get me out. And I just kept repeating it until they managed to whiz the head off.
Daniels may have lost his head as 3PO, but when it came to risking life and limb, the production now had a team of trained stunt professionals. For the execution scene on Jabba's barge, stunt performers dropped in on the most ravenous monster yet, the Sarlacc.
It wasn't edited that way, but I was the first guy to come off the skiff into the pit, because I had to make sure it would work and everybody was going to be all right. But I had a lot of sand coming on top of me. But I was able to say to the guys, if you go in, shut your eyes, keep your mouth closed, right? Put some cotton wool up your nose, otherwise you'll be sniffing up sand. 2 or 3 people went in one after the other. So as one went in, they pulled him out, the other one went in, they pulled him out. So, I mean, what was happening down below is a comedy film of its own, quite honestly, yes. But these are the things the public don't see.
Chewie, your head? Where is it? BV, take 1. A&B.
Well, I was hanging on that rope with Han Solo, and he was trying to save me. And one of the squids went right through my toe. And I'm screaming to Dan, stop, stop. And he's so busy acting. And I'm like, I'm in pain. And all of a sudden he realized that I got hurt.
Oh, wait, I thought you were flying! It's all right, I can see a lot better. Don't move! A little higher! Just a little higher!
Harrison really, he's one of those actors that he's very intense.
Chewie, pull some!
And he really gets into what he's doing, So he was really into it.
For Carrie Fisher, getting into the role of Leia this time meant fitting into a skimpy slave girl costume.
I got to kill Jabba the Hutt, but I was still much more concerned about the slave girl outfit and what I was going to do about exercise.
1C, take 2. A&B cameras.
Okay, wave your arm around. And darting action.
And then George Lucas said, instead of attacking Jabba from the front and be getting angry with him and whacking him. I want Carrie Fisher to jump on his back, and then she'd got her high-heeled shoes on, and it happened to be that my little fellow inside, it was only foam rubber, and it went right into his head, and he screamed his head off. So we had to stop the car.
Right, hold it.
Before they could do the shot again, I had to build a little firm bit over the top of his head so she could get up there.
Take 3, pick up. AMV camera. Right, background panic, go. Okay, and action.
That was a great relief. He was an unpleasant thing with a mung in the corner of the mouth, and I never really liked that.
Let's go, and don't forget the droids. We're on our way.
For the veteran cast members, bringing something fresh to their characters was often difficult.
Don't move.
I love you.
I know.
Stand up.
Another challenge on the set was Richard Marquand's relative inexperience with special effects.
It's a difficult thing to do, you know, work on the one hand with, you know, the special effects, and on the other hand with a storyline with actors, you know, and making those two things marry.
I hadn't realized that, you know, ultimately it's probably easier for me to do these things than to farm them out. Because it was even more complex than the last one, I really did have to end up being there every day on the set and working very closely with Richard and shooting second unit, and there was really more work than I thought it was going to be.
Under Lucas's supervision, the production moved to the redwood forests of Northern California.
Speed camera.
There they photographed one of the film's most exhilarating action sequences.
Hey, wait!
The speeder bike chase.
Quick, jam their comm link, center switch.
I got the idea of using a Steadicam, and we did a test in a local park here of walking through the woods on a path that we kind of disguised, and he shot with a camera that shot 1 frame of film every second. So when you project it back 24 frames a second, it's going 24 times faster. And we figured he walked about 5 miles an hour. It came up to about 100 miles an hour, and it looked great.
Jedi surprised audiences with its imaginative scope, both large and small. It introduced a tiny but valiant new ally to the rebellion, a race of pint-sized warriors known as Ewoks.
And action. Hey, point that thing someplace else.
Hey! All right, don't. It'll be all right.
Joining the cast was Warwick Davis, who was just a youngster at the time, but also a die-hard Star Wars fan.
I was an 11-year-old boy at school, and my grandmother happened to hear a radio commercial on the London radio station, and they were putting out a call for short people to be in this new Star Wars movie. I don't think anybody on the movie was quite as excited as I was. You know, being an 11-year-old on a Star Wars set, there was no stopping me.
In the role of Wicket, Davis became the film's most prominently featured Ewok. But only after Kenny Baker was suddenly taken ill.
I had this scene with Carrie and the speeder bikes in California, in the redwoods. And I was looking forward to this. I thought, well, not Carrie's nice. I like working with Carrie.
Come the morning of the shoot, Kenny was very ill in bed with what I believe was food poisoning.
I was seriously in pain. And said, well, we've got to do it because we've got Carrie Fisher in and we've got the scene set up. So Warwick took over.
72A, take 2. A and B camera. Don't forget.
And they called me in to play the scene instead.
Action.
Cut it out!
I had a dog at the time, and I remember whenever he would hear a strange noise, he would tilt his head from side to side to look inquisitive, and I took those kind of movements and used them in the character. So whenever he sees something or hears a strange sound, he would, tilt his head.
115S, take 3. A camera mark. Mark.
What did he say? Ewok!
He said, look out!
I like Ewoks. And I think they're in there to really show that you don't need technology, you need the will and the belief to take you through anything. And the fact that, the Ewoks were able to defeat the Empire only using ropes and rocks, I think that said something about them as a race of creatures.
Fighters coming in.
It doesn't matter how much machinery you have. If the will of the people is strong, they will always win.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
And action.
As filming on Revenge of the Jedi drew closer to completion, emotions ran high. And saying goodbye would be difficult.
As we were finishing the third one, we really had the sense of it was the end, that they were going to tie up all the loose ends, and there was a kind of clearing your locker out at the end of the semester feel to it all. So part of me was saying, oh, I'm so glad to put this behind me. And the other aspect was, well, what about all the adventures that Luke could have?
For the moment, George Lucas was totally focused on completing his epic trilogy. He weighed every decision, including a change in Jedi's title just weeks before it opened.
Just before it got to the theaters, George came back and he said, I want to go back to Return of the Jedi. Now, the logic behind that was a Jedi does not take revenge.
Return of the Jedi opened on Wednesday, May 25th, 1983, exactly 6 years from the day that Star Wars made its debut. On its first day, the film took in $6.2 million, making it the biggest opening day box office in history by nearly $1 million.
Told you they'd do it.
But for George Lucas, completing the trilogy involved personal sacrifice. The success of Jedi would be bittersweet at best.
The challenge is always trying to do something that's all-consuming with having a private life. And I had made the decision after Star Wars that I had certain goals in my private life. One was to be independent of Hollywood. The other one ultimately was to have a family. I finished Return of the Jedi. I figured that was the end of it for me. I figured, well, I've done it. I finished my trilogy. This is what I started out to do. This is what I was determined to get finished. And it was overwhelming and difficult, but fate has a way of stepping in. I ended up getting divorced right as the film Jedi was finished, and I was left to raise my daughter.
With the profits he made from the Star Wars movies and merchandise, George Lucas was able to keep funding his dream of pushing the boundaries of film and audio technology. For the next 2 decades, he continued to create new and exciting innovations, and in the process, he fundamentally changed filmmaking for the better. In 1984, Lucasfilm revolutionized motion picture editing with Editroid and Soundroid, the world's first nonlinear digital editing systems. For the first time, filmmakers could instantly access any frame or audio track at the touch of a button. In 1985, Lucasfilm's computer division invented the Pixar computer, helping generate a new form of animation characterized by three-dimensional realism. The division was later sold and became Pixar Animation Studios, the creator of such instant classics as Toy Story. The digital breakthroughs that Lucas himself had ushered in would eventually lead him back full circle to Star Wars. In 1993, after helping create ILM's groundbreaking effects in Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park, Lucas concluded that digital technology had finally caught up to his original vision. In 1997, he would revisit and perfect his galactic saga at last, with the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition.
For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
Things I couldn't afford to do at the time, things that I had to give up on because I just didn't have the time or money or the power to do it. I was able to go in, complete the films the way I originally intended them to be, and have it be pretty much the way I want them to be.
In 1999, 22 years after the original premiere, Lucas introduced Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The film marked the beginning of another trilogy for a new generation. It also allowed Lucas to continue his pioneering use of digital technology.
I'm finishing this for the love of Star Wars. I like Star Wars. I want to see the whole thing finished.
For more than 3 decades, George Lucas's passion and dedication to the Star Wars saga has brought its share of rewards. But like the Force itself, success also has its dark side.
What I was trying to do is stay independent so I could make the movies I wanted to make. But at the same time, I was sort of fighting the corporate system, which I didn't like. And I'm not happy with the fact that corporations have taken over the film industry. But now I found myself being the head of a corporation. So there's a certain irony there, is that I have become the very thing that I was trying to avoid, which is basically what part of Star Wars is about.
The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
That is Darth Vader. He becomes the very thing that he's trying to protect himself against. But at the same time, I feel good that I'm able to make my movies the way I want them to be.
While George Lucas has remained true to his own vision, it's been audiences everywhere who've reaped the rewards. Ever since May 1977, when moviegoers first caught sight of that galaxy far, far away.
The themes that George is dealing with are so strong, so primordial. The conflicts between children and their parents. Luke Skywalker was George growing up. George facing conflict and the need to prove himself.
You have learned much, young one.
And he did, powerfully.
You'll find I'm full of surprises.
George was somehow able to put the good guys and the bad guys and the mythology in a package that somehow touched us. I don't know how. I guess if you know how, everybody would be doing it.
Do or do not. There is no try.
I am so pleased to be a part of that whole legend, even as an observer, and I am just an observer. Most impressive.
He's created people that everyone in the world knows. Any author that could create such memorable characters would be a very happy person indeed.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
He really established the independent film market. His films changed epic productions. He changed storytelling. He created what Hollywood is today.
I'm out of it for a little while. Everybody gets delusions of grandeur.
George was creating a new world for Hollywood, and we were lucky enough to be a part of it.
Come on!
He's not just the creator and director, now he is the studio. He can make exactly the movie that he wants to make.
Obi-Wan has taught you well.
One of the things that George Lucas has done in Star Wars is to communicate, in fact, with the younger self that resides somewhere inside even the oldest person.
Good shot, Red 2.
I think our cultural imagination has been transformed by Lucas's films, by taking us back to stories that make us all feel that we share in the heroic journey of the human species on this earth.
The Force will be with you, always.
George Lucas moved us into a new place in space, a new time in the future, which no one else had created up to that time. Star Wars had a tremendous impact on the young people, as well as adults for that matter.
I've committed myself to making these movies. I believe in these movies. I think they're very entertaining, and I think if I can get a room full of people and they enjoy it, then I've done whatever I hope to do.
For George Lucas, what began as a quest for creative freedom became a philosophy, a cultural phenomenon, and an empire of dreams.
And may the Force go with you.